Eternal Eyes is perhaps one of the most overlooked RPGs on the PlayStation, and that no doubt comes down to the fact that when it released in the West, it only cost $10. Most people likely saw this as a reflection of its quality, and while it's not the most groundbreaking RPG of its time, it still offered plenty to enjoy. It all revolves around a young boy known as Luke, and his ability to control magical puppets referred to as Mapamon, which plays heavily into the game's turn-based battle system. At first glance, it's easy to see the influence of classics like Final Fantasy Tactics, but Eternal Eyes carves its own identity thanks to this monster summoning system. Luke and your companions rely upon these creatures, and by feeding them enough jewels that are scattered throughout the game, it's possible to either upgrade their statistics or transform them into a completely different puppet altogether. In battle, you get to control up to 3 of them at a time, and as you would guess, they all come along with their own distinct abilities, elemental alignments, and growth patterns, offering a deep layer of customization. By experimenting with different combinations of jewels and finding the most effective setups, it's possible to build a truly formidable team that's ready for anything that the game throws at you. Although it never reached the same heights of its contemporaries, Eternal Eyes feels like the perfect entry point for players looking to get into the genre, and this comes down to its relatively easy gameplay. Admittedly, there's not much here for seasoned players in terms of difficulty, but its charming story, engaging combat, and unique monster summoning mechanics make it something that's at least worth trying out for yourself. Dragon Valor is an action RPG that never received the recognition it deserved and offered a unique blend of hack-and-slash gameplay and branching narratives that sadly went missed by many. What made it a bit different from other games of its kind was the inclusion of something known as the family tree system that at first begins with Clovis, a young man thrust into the role of a dragon slayer after a tragic encounter with a powerful dragon. As the tale unfolds, you've got to make choices that determine the lineage of these slayers, leading to different protagonists, plotlines, and even alternate endings to unlock. This generational aspect creates a sense of legacy and weight as your decisions ripple across time and shape the fate of the world around you. But at the heart of the game is the combat system that offers plenty of fluid, fast-paced battles and rewards your skill and timing. You get to wield powerful swords, unleash devastating magic-based attacks, and perform various acrobatic moves to help even the odds against one of the many different enemies you'll encounter throughout the adventure. As I mentioned, you'll be playing as many different slayers, and as you would expect, each of them come along with their own unique traits and fighting styles, ensuring that the combat feels varied and exciting throughout the game's runtime. And as you defeat the enemies, you'll gain experience points that allow you to enhance your attributes. And with the family tree system, you'll want to revisit the game time and time again. So whether you're a long-time fan of the genre or new to action RPGs, Dragon Valor is a game that deserves your attention, and with the amount of content that it brings to the table, it's something that remains enjoyable even after the credits have rolled multiple times. When it comes to action RPGs, the Tales of series has always been one of my go-tos, and Destiny on the PlayStation is by far one of the best entries in the franchise. It follows the journey of a young swordsman named Stan, who unwittingly becomes involved in a battle to save his world from destruction. What follows is an epic journey across a truly fleshed out world, from peaceful towns to the darkest and most threatening of dungeons. Each and every corner of the kingdom has a story to tell, and with a cast of lovable NPCs to back it up with, it soon becomes one of its most endearing aspects. But the main draw of the game has to be its combat, that utilizes the linear motion battle system and allows you to control your characters in real time. Each encounter is presented in a side-scrolling fashion and sees you having command of a range of different abilities, where you can execute combos, block attacks, and use special moves. It strikes a great balance between strategy and action, requiring quick reflexes and the thoughtful use of your skills, and your party members are handled by the AI, which does a really decent job of keeping up with the player, and you're able to customize their behavior as well, depending on the situation at hand. Now visually, this is where Tales of Destiny truly excels, with some of the best sprite work on the console, and during combat the flashy effects for skills and spells ensure that each encounter is just as exciting as the last. Whether you've played any of the later Tales games or are simply looking for a new adventure to jump into, Tales of Destiny is a must play and totally worth tracking down to add to your collection as well. Harvest Moon is a series that reaches way back to the days of the Super Nintendo, and the PlayStation received one of its best entries that sadly doesn't get talked about too often these days. The premise sees you inheriting a rundown farm from your grandfather, and you've got to restore it to its former glory. In order to do this, the game is split up into days, where you've got to manage your time effectively and carry out a number of different tasks to expand your farm. Every day you wake up, water your crops, tend to your animals, and the rhythm of the daily grind is what will keep you moving forward through different seasons, giving you the opportunity to experiment and optimize your farm's productivity. As you would expect, resource management and items play a huge role in the day-to-day running of the farm, from purchasing new tools to expanding your barn to accommodate more animals. There's an overwhelming sense of accomplishment that comes from watching your farm grow from its humble beginnings into a flourishing operation, but it's not all just simply about tending your crops and livestock, as the environment and people around you are just as important as well. You can form friendships with the other villagers by giving them gifts or chatting to them on a daily basis, and work towards unlocking some of the more rare items in the game by doing so. There's even romantic options, with up to 5 different ladies to potentially form a bond with, that opens up a nice amount of replayability should you want to see everything that the game has to offer. Even though it was outshined by its Nintendo 64 counterpart, Back to Nature on the PlayStation is still a great option when it comes to looking for a new RPG to try out. One of those obscure classic Japanese games, Vanguard Bandits, known as Epica Stella in Japan, would never have made it to the West if it weren't for companies like Working Designs that thrived on porting them. And it's an SRPG with a strange blend of mechs and a medieval setting that focuses on a young hero known as Bastion as he tries to save his kingdom from the clutches of an evil empire. Even though it might sound a bit cliche, what sets it apart is its branching storyline, which offers multiple paths and endings depending on your choices throughout the adventure. As a result, the replay value is off the charts, and thankfully the gameplay offers enough variety that it never seems to get stale. At the heart of it lies the ATACs, or all-terrain armored combatants, which serve as both weapons of war and symbols of power. Due to the grid-based setup, the turn-based battles require careful positioning, strategic use of your abilities, and a keen understanding of the enemy's weaknesses to succeed. During combat, you've got to keep an eye on 2 different gauges. First are your movement points, which are used up as you move and attack, and the second is your fatigue points, which increase when you attack or defend. But if your FP reaches 100, your character will faint. This dual gauge system introduces a welcome level of strategy, as it means you are forced to actually strategize your moves instead of just wailing at the enemy with your strongest attacks. But one of the standout features though is the ability to fully customize and upgrade your ATACs. From weapons and armor to special skills, the game offers plenty of options to tailor your mechs to suit your playstyle. So if you're a fan of mechs and are looking for a new RPG to jump into on the PlayStation, Vanguard Bandits is definitely one worth considering. The PlayStation was well known for its games that took the leap into full 3D, and to be fair, not all of them always hit the mark, with plenty of experiences that felt like complete shovelware. But Crusaders of Might and Magic, while not receiving widespread acclaim, was a surprisingly decent take on the action RPG genre. As its name suggests, the game's lore is drawn from the broader Might and Magic series, and throws you into the role of a knight named Drake, who embarks on a journey to save the world from an evil undead force that were responsible for the murder of his family and friends. Gameplay sees you getting to wield a huge range of weapons and magic spells that help you to overcome the diverse amount of enemies, from goblins and orcs to dragons and necromancers, that will all keep you on your toes due to their unique strengths and weaknesses. Now there's a nice balance between melee combat and spell casting, allowing you to approach battles in different ways, and with you gradually becoming more powerful as you acquire new equipment and upgrade your skills, the sense of progression is at the heart of the adventure. Of course, like many RPGs out there, combat is only half of the story, and exploring the world of Might and Magic is just as compelling. You'll be uncovering secret items, solving puzzles, and taking on one of the many different side quests presented throughout the game that often reward you with powerful gear or experience points, making it all the more worthwhile. So whether you're drawn in by the fantasy setting, strategic combat, or the lore-rich world, Crusaders of Might and Magic is a game that delivers on all fronts, so if you come across it, it is one adventure that deserves a spot in every RPG fan's collection. Blood Omen Legacy of Kain introduced players to a gothic world of curses and revenge, with the player taking on the role of Kain, a nobleman who was brutally murdered and resurrected as a vampire. What starts out as a simple quest for vengeance soon opens up into a grander story that sees you unraveling the secrets of the realm and the dark forces that lurk within the shadows. The writing is one of the most engaging aspects of the game, and with it being coupled with some of the best voice acting for its time, Kain's transformation from a vengeful human to a cold, calculating vampire is a journey you won't forget. As with most action RPGs, there's an equal blend of hack and slash combat, puzzle solving and exploring, with the player having the option to wield a huge range of different weapons, as well as spells that cater to different playstyles. From swords and axes to fireballs and mind control abilities, the game encourages players to experiment and adapt to different enemy types that all pose their own unique threats. And playing into the vampire aspect of the game, you've got to feed on the blood of your opponents to restore your health and magic points. That adds a tactical element to the combat, as you've got to weigh your attacks carefully to ensure you can feed without being overwhelmed. As for the puzzles, this is where Kain's ability to transform into different states, such as a bat or a mist, come into play, and as you progress, more of these become available and adds new layers of complexity to both combat and exploration. Few games manage to capture the essence of their world and characters as effectively as Blood Omen Legacy of Kain. It's a true classic, and hopefully one day it makes a return. The PlayStation was home to countless incredible RPGs, but few of them capture the essence of timeless storytelling and gameplay as beautifully as Breath of Fire 4 does. As with most entries, it once again sees you taking up the fight as Ryu, but this time around the story is split into two different narratives, with the character of Fo Lu getting an equal amount of screen time throughout the adventure. The game constantly switches back and forth between them and manages to weave a truly epic tale that would go on to become one of the best in the series. Now, in terms of gameplay, you control your party of characters, of which you can only have 3 fighting at one time. The battles are random and take on the form of a turn-based system and are displayed in the traditional isometric view. But what makes it a bit different is that you now have the ability to switch your party members in the middle of a battle, very much like Final Fantasy X's system, with those that are switched out slowly recovering over time. It's incredibly beneficial and important to make good use of this feature, especially during some of the more challenging moments throughout the game. And apart from the usual attacks, magic spells and items that you get to use, the inclusion of a new combo system serves to spice up the gameplay even more. You're able to chain spells and abilities together for devastating effects, and on top of this you've got the transformation system that allows your character to change into a powerful dragon with new abilities that can also be upgraded by spending game points that you acquire by completing one of the many different minigames. In the end, Breath of Fire 4 is one of my favourite in the series, and here's hoping Capcom one day see the light and bring this series back. Vandal Hearts 2 felt like a huge change when compared to the original, with the trademark violence of the first game being swapped out for a more toned down approach that made it far more accessible for players of all ages. Sure, I was sad to see the more gritty aspects of the game go, but it still managed to introduce many new ideas that would not only see it surpass the first entry, but also become one of the best RPGs the PlayStation has to offer. The story is one of its strongest aspects and follows Joshua, a young boy whose village is destroyed in a conflict, in his journey from a troubled youth to a pivotal figure in a world torn apart by war. Unlike many RPGs of its time, Vandal Hearts 2 tackles mature themes such as religion, class struggle, and the blurred line between heroes and villains, with the choices you make having a significant impact on the story. But if the gameplay wasn't just as compelling, all of it would be for nothing, and thankfully it's no slouch in this department as well. The main feature is its unique dual turn system. Unlike traditional turn-based systems where players and enemies take turns sequentially, Vandal Hearts 2 requires both sides to move and act simultaneously. This means that every action you take must account for the potential movements and attacks of your enemies, creating a dynamic and unpredictable battlefield. It can take a while to get used to, and adapting to the ever-changing flow of combat may be a bit too much for some, but for those that it clicks with, it's something that truly sets it apart from other RPGs available on the system. With its bold and ambitious take on the genre that successfully blends innovative gameplay with a mature and engaging story, Vandal Hearts 2 is an absolute must-have. The PlayStation era really felt like the golden age of Square RPGs. From the likes of Final Fantasy VII and IX to Xenogears and Vagrant Story, the company seemed to have an endless amount of incredible ideas, and no other game proves that better than Racing Lagoon. Leaving behind the turn-based battles and fantasy settings, it instead focuses upon the world of underground racing, with a huge emphasis on storytelling that follows the journey of Sho, a young street racer searching for his past and seeking to become the fastest on the Midnight Highway. At its core, it's a racing game, but it's the RPG elements that truly make it shine. By taking on and winning races, you'll gain experience points that allow you to level up and improve your car's performance, with customization being just as important, where you can swap out engines, tires, exhaust, and other parts to fine-tune your vehicle. When it comes to the racing itself, the game is split up into an overworld and individual races that see you driving around the streets of Yokohama and challenging opponents that offer up unique parts for your car should you succeed. Once out on the streets, the driving mechanics are tight and responsive, and even the smallest of changes to your car will have a noticeable effect on its performance, making the grind to acquire the best parts in the game all the more rewarding. Overall, with its multiple story paths, hidden content, and its vast array of customization options, Racing Lagoon offers substantial replay value, with each new run revealing new rivals, cars, and narrative twists, ensuring that no two playthroughs feel exactly the same. For fans of both RPGs and racing games, this is a one-of-a-kind experience that delivers the best of both worlds. Well, that does it for today's video. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell to get notified about new videos which release every Monday and Thursday. You can follow me on all of the socials which are linked below to stay up to date, and also join my growing community on Discord to meet many like-minded gamers to continue the conversation with. I'd like to give a special shout out to my Patreon supporters Rhino, Skill Jim, Shuden, Richard, Amy, Daniel, Dio, Omar, Strider, Pierre, Carl, Awesome Jacket Dude, Maximus, Scott, Alfred, Terry, Ryan, Alex, GameCube Galaxy, Curse Salaryman, Fake and Paddy J for their continued support that helps make these videos possible. If you're interested in joining my Discord or supporting the channel through Patreon, you'll find all of these links down below. As always, thanks for taking the time to check the video out. I'll catch you next time.